This is the Welcome to Humanity podcast with thought leader and transformative psychiatrist, Dr. Fred Moss. This show focuses on the betterment of humanity on a global scale. Each episode will leave you enlightened, inspired, and ready to make an impact in your world. Welcome to the show. Welcome to your life. Welcome to humanity. Here's Dr. Fred.
You know, it's an opportunity again today to introduce to you one of the great people that is in my circle. And I met Freddie Ravel 3 years ago. We are members of a group together and we cross paths a number of times and we share our same friends. And it's really an honor to know Freddie. We had a conversation last week that just beat the band. It was just an explosive conversation about who we can be or what's being called for in the world of creativity. And if someone has some access to the world of creativity and the route to get there, it would be Freddie Ravel. So it's really a privilege and an honor to introduce to you, my listeners, today's guest, Freddie Ravel. Freddie, thank you so much for being here today. It's really just a pleasure to have you.
Well, Fred, thank you so much for inviting me, and what a pleasure it is to be with your audience and a privilege. So thank you for inviting me.
Awesome. You're welcome. Each and every one of us is really dealing with something, right? No matter whether we're tackling some of the big problems in the world or maybe even the tiny ones, we all face challenges. Now, I've been a psychiatrist for many years, and I've worked with all kinds of people from all walks of life. I've worked with more people than I can really count, from various backgrounds, dealing with more issues than you can imagine, of all sizes and shapes. So naturally, over time, I've developed a number of ways to assist others in gaining a new sense of freedom and empowerment. Now, I'm pulling back the curtain on one of those methodologies, and I'm going public, revealing the process and associated mindset that contributed to using this particular method with maximum effectiveness. It's all laid out in my new book called Creative 8, Healing Through Creativity and Self-Expression. You can pick this book up on Amazon.com in either Kindle or paperback format. And as a listener to the Welcome to Humanity podcast, I'd like to offer you a completely free copy in audiobook format. Just go to welcometohumanity.net/creative and download your free audiobook copy of Creative 8 today. I really look forward to hearing about your Creative 8 breakthrough. Now, let's get back to this amazing conversation. Welcome to humanity. You know, Freddie, some people probably may even know you. Some people tuned into this thing because they thought, oh, wow, Fred introduced Fred. And so let's see how that went. And there'll be others who don't know you. There'll be, don't know you yet, maybe, or others who thought they knew you and are about to learn something different about you and all that. So, a question I like to open up with is what I call, it's actually a question that has the whole question has less than 10 letters in it. And the question is, who are you? And it really is a real question. You get to answer that question. You get to answer that question in any direction you want this beautiful morning. And I leave open that opportunity for you to just tell us, my listeners and your listeners, who are you, Freddie Ravel? We're like, really?
Wow. There's, of course, many ways to answer that. But if I had to put it all into a message in a bottle and throw it out to the ocean and trust whoever picks it up on the beach on the other side, probably the note would say, hi, my name is Freddie Ravel, and I am here to raise human potential through music. And that's it. Mm-hmm. Because I believe that music is much more than entertainment. And I believe that music is, it is the undisputed international language of the world. It is also considered the universal language. And we know that music has been around ever since the birth of sound. And even when we think of the origins of the universe, we don't describe it as, the big vision or the big taste. We call it the Big Bang. Mm-hmm. And right out the gate, we're engaged in sound and vibration and resonance. And right now, as I say these words, we're, reaching other people through all their various devices, headphones, iPods, iPhones, whatever people are experiencing this transmission through, we're all resonating and we all have heartbeats and there's a rhythm inside all of us. And I believe that rhythm is what links everything together. And this is very much why throughout my journey, I've landed in a place where my team and I are working to deliver this concept called life in tune, and the idea of how you can strike success with the rhythm in you. And striking success is a very big thing to figure out. And I think that it's interwoven into the rhythm that's inside each of us.
So striking success with the rhythm in you and life in tune. There's something here. I mean, people, you talk about the Big Bang, or you talk the heartbeat, you talk about the vibrations, you even talk about the media we're using today, which is 100% sound dependent, right? I mean, this is the only way that anyone's going to absorb anything that either you or I are trying to put forth is through sound, is through vibrations, and all of the world is through vibrations. Is this what you're saying for the most part?
It is. And even to go a little step further, it is widely known that we have our five senses, right? The sense that a baby developing inside the mother's womb before it's born, the first sense that gets activated is hearing, the ability to hear. It's the first thing that is activated in our development into the physical body. And it is also commonly known that usually the last sense to go when we pass is listening and hearing. So hearing is predominantly the first one and predominantly the last sense in the journey of birth to death, and even pre-birth. So if you think about that, resonance is incredibly important, and it can be our own internal guide to how we navigate the world. And at the same time, resonance and rhythm work together. And, we're all living, breathing rhythm machines, right? We have circadian rhythms that we manage our life through the way we're in sync with the earth, the way we awaken and the way we go to sleep, and the way our bodily functions work, and the way we eat and drink and make love, and all the other things that us human beings do, and the way we work, our schedules, our patterns. Everything is synced up with a rhythm while we float around in this pale blue dot that is circling the sun and taking 365 days a year to do it, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. In other words, rhythm is going, and we're dancing in that. And how we choose to dance and use those valuable days of our lives to be relevant, I think, is one of the most important questions we can ask. I mean, my final kind of closing idea of that is, ultimately, I believe in my heart that we are all here to add value to each other, to contribute to each other, and to enjoy the journey. I want to emphasize that. I think there's a need to identify and recognize that we're also here for joy. We're not just here to get up in the morning and slog through the day. We're here to use our gifts and our talents to bring joy to one another.
So there's a couple places I'm tempted to go with this. You are a musician, and you're even a renowned and well-accomplished musician. I'm the physician, you're the musician. Let's get that straight. And there's a opportunity here, to reach into our conversation, our brilliant conversation from last week, when you were speaking about the spaces between the notes. And, and the value of the spaces between the notes, this silence or the stillness or the easel from which the notes are laid onto, the non-note space of music. I would love to ask you to poke at that now and let us know, because isn't it the spaces that sort of define the domain of the rhythm?
It is. When I say the space between the notes, I mean that in the literal sense, in a musical sense, but I also mean that in the space between our words, right? So I could talk to you at a rapid pace like this with I could be continuously thinking of thoughts, and words are coming out of my mouth, and I'm not stopping, I'm not pausing, I'm not taking a breath. Woo!
Right.
It's hard to listen to that, right? What I just did, it's like uncomfortable to listen to a string of words that have no space. But if I'm talking and I decide that I want to place emphasis and emphasize the rhythm and the space between each and every word that I am uttering, my ability to communicate an idea becomes far more powerful. See? So what did we do? We went from a very fast rhythm to a deliberately slower rhythm with emphasizing certain words. And you find that people who are effective communicators use speeding up and slowing down and emphasizing certain words and contributing certain amounts of space, and they become better communicators. Now that's called the space between the words. The space between the notes is a parallel universe in music, and it requires, when you play a rhythm or you play a song or you play a melody, the space that occurs in between those notes gives the feeling. So, God, there's a billion songs and a billion riffs riffs out there, but I'm thinking right now, the one that's coming to me in this nanosecond, Fred, is Bruno Mars. He has a song called Uptown Funk, and it's got a bass line in it. Don't, 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 2, 3. Don't, 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 don't. So the first space is the note is on the downbeat. Don't, 3, 4. 3 more beats go by and nothing happens. Dun, 2, 3. Dun, 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 dun. In that space where nothing happens, guess what? People jump on a dance floor.
Interesting.
And grab each other and twirl each other and smile. If that space wasn't there, people wouldn't find the space for them to dance in their minds and in their legs and in their feet. So space is an invitation for other people to receive and react to what you've said. And that's why space is so important to everything.
That is brilliant. It's really, we've been doing some studying, some natural studying and some formalized studying into duality, into duality as a function of everything, and even non-duality as a greater way of looking, or perhaps a higher way of looking at life. And there would be no sound if there was no space. So there really wouldn't. There'd be nothing to define. That it sort of is the beginning and the end of each sound as a space. And it's like the only way to distinguish one sound from another is to contrast it through the world of the space in between those notes. It's just fascinating.
Yeah. I want everyone to understand that the space between the notes is really a broad idea, because you need the space between everything. I mean, you could even argue that it's part of all aspects of art, For example, Apple is very famous for using a great deal of negative space in their ads, right? You look at a billboard and there's 95% of the ad is white or gray, and there's one word in the middle of the screen, think different or something like that, right? With a period at the end of it. But what does that do? What is all that, in the world of advertising? And right now I'm switching to the visual.
Sure.
Because the vast majority of human beings are visual. They like to think visually and they can feel it because they can see it, right? So what I'm saying is the advertising world calls that negative space. And when there's that vast amount of negative space, the brain, the human being looks at that and goes, wow, there's a sandbox that I can play in. And by playing, I can wrap my brain around think different or whatever the motto is. And every brand strives with great effort to communicate something that is a combination of clear messaging and negative space. And all of that is the space between the notes.
So what are we to learn or gather from this? Certainly it's fascinating. And I find myself using my tonality or my dancing through space as I deliver this question, as I consider whether staccato or vibrato or whatever I have coming here is the proper space or tone to deliver the message that I'm intending to get across. That really my manipulation of the space in between my notes is the essence of the impact that I'm making with those notes. I think you did a Sinatra song for us, a brief Sinatra song for the two of us in our conversation last week, really showing the difference.
Yeah, it was New York, I think.
Yes, I think so.
And, that's right, Fred. And by the way, what you just said and the way you said it, I could feel a sharper focus on what you just said. And I could also feel an incredible, steady rhythm of your tone and voice that was very sharp and very, solid. And I could almost set a metronome to it, meaning that it didn't deviate. So what happened is there was an awareness that came to you about it. You thought about it as you said it. And what came out was a more focused, consistent energy. So that's one thing to maybe share with your listeners, that you can translate the power of steady music of your favorite song, for example, and think about the rhythm of your favorite song, and then apply that to the tempo and pacing of your message, of how you speak, how you articulate, how you emphasize, right? And then all of a sudden, you'll start finding that when you speak to people, they're going, God, you sound so clear. You're so focused. I got it. I got your idea. I can use that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it, Fred. We have a term in music that everyone knows when they hear a hit song and they hear the hook, right? The hook. Well, the hook is that part of the song that you can't stop singing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's certain songs that, you know, I'm thinking of Pharrell, 'cause I'm happy, 'cause I'm happy. Da 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 da. It goes up, the melody goes up. Da da. Happy, and it ends up on happy, and there are two repeated notes at the end, and at the last note is a P, so it's open, and you land on E's, which opens it up. If you landed on an S, it wouldn't work so well, but it lands on an open vowel, right?
Mm-hmm.
So as a songwriter, as a person who's been doing music my whole life, I'm very sensitive to the way tones work and the way people communicate. And that's what we've done with Life in Tune, is we've taken all these nuggets that we know about in music that make music the oldest and most effective language on the planet, that transcends language itself. And we're applying it on a daily basis to the way people can succeed, whether they play a musical instrument or not.
Right. So this, you know, let's talk a little bit about that, because it's a beautiful project. You're a student of, you know, the vibrational world, and you're a master in many areas. You know, your recordings show that, and, you know, who you get to be, and even your history of all of your experience pre and post, and who you've been in Los Angeles is that. But there's something you're pointing to here that, well, maybe it envelopes, or maybe it precedes, or maybe it is, in fact, what draws you forward as a human, like succeeding through music. And the spaces or the tones or the emphasis of making a statement and then listening to that statement and then responding to what I listened to or what I heard, and the communication or the dancing that goes on in the visual space, in the auditory space, you know, in nature's space, the whole idea. And then it seems like you've encapsulated this as a student of sound to now have a focal intention to make a difference on the planet around you and around us. Can you say a little bit more about what this project is about? I'm so curious.
Sure. Well, thank you, Fred. It's actually, there's a part of it that's incredibly simple. The simple part of it is that at the core of the project, I don't even really call it a project. I want to call it a system that has been there from the beginning of time, that I have kind of stumbled on, and all I'm doing is a reveal. I didn't create it. I just figured out a way to interpret it, but it was always there. Okay, so that's very important. If you think of any form of music, any of your listeners, anybody out there listening to this podcast and this recording, if you think of any song, I mean, any song you can imagine, it could be Happy Birthday to You, it could be Happy Birthday, which is the most commonly sung on the planet, I might add.
Who knew that?
It could be, you know, it could be a Beatles song. I'm saying a Beatles song because you can sing a Beatles song almost anywhere in the world and people
Jingle
know
bells.
it, right?
You could do Jingle Bells, right?
Yeah, we're coming out of the holidays. We're going into the new year, and you have da 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 da. Any of these songs, we'd be here for multiple lifetimes trying to go through every song. But every single song has a melody, every single song has a harmony, and every song has a rhythm, right? And these three properties are inherent in virtually all music. And when I say all music, I'm talking about every piece of music that comes out of the 193 countries on planet Earth. And because of that, there are roles that each of these play. And here's the simple breakdown. Anytime you're dealing with the melody, it's being delivered by the lead singer, right? You know, if Frank Sinatra says, "This little town blues," he's the lead vocalist. He's the lead singer, and he's singing the melody. He's not singing the harmony, right? He's not singing the chords. It's pretty hard to sing the chords. And he's also not singing the rhythm, but he's singing in rhythm. But he's not being the drummer. He's singing the melody, right? So the melody is the lead. Melody is leading. And so I use melody to talk about leadership when I go into a broader definition of melody. And then harmony requires two or more notes in music. You need at least two notes. And if I had a piano in front of me, I don't at the moment, but I'd be playing two notes at the same time to illustrate that, or three notes or four notes or six notes. But at least two or more notes is required to create harmony, you know? And then, so I use harmony to talk about collaboration and working together. So melody is kind of a singular leadership role conducted by the lead vocalist, lead singer, or lead instrumentalist. And harmony is 2 or more notes. So it's collaborative. So I'll go into corporations and talk about teams and team building with harmony as the root of it all. That gives me an opportunity to build community and build tribes. Community, tribes, and teams are in the wheelhouse of harmony. Okay? Then we go to rhythm. And rhythm is always about, da 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 dee. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's always the subdivision of one word, and it's time. Rhythm is always, and it doesn't matter what kind of music it is. It doesn't matter if it's rock and roll or Mozart or EDM or funk or R&B, merengue, salsa, samba, it doesn't matter. The rhythm is always about time. So melody's the lead, harmony is the collaboration, and rhythm is timing.
I look at the word time, and, I really see in all caps, if you look at that word, how rhythmic it is in its nature anyways. The 1 and 3 of T and M and the softness of the vowels in the I and E are so interesting, right? Like 1, 2, 3, 4, it's like it's there in that word. And then when I spread out a little further, I get the same experience with the word harmony, with harmony representing what you just described, this sort of, H to Y sort of collaborative word that flows. And then melody in some ways similar to harmony, but main, the starting with the lead singer or the lead vocalist delivers the melody. And I guess what you're saying is that this extends far beyond simply four people sitting around their favorite musical instruments and delivering a song or a number or even a symphony, with hundreds of people. It's more than that, right? It's life's actions. It's each and everything we do. It's each and every communication we have has this rhythm and this music. You could say in the background, but frankly, isn't it just the water that we swim in as fish is in this world of music?
Yeah, I mean, that's why I call this whole thing life in tune. It's all of those things. But the reason I say life is because it's water and air and everything else. I believe that it describes the dance, the amazing dance of nature, and our dance with nature and our dance with each other. So that's life. That's the joy and the vibrancy of life. In tune describes a level of awakening and a level of awareness and a level of being in resonance with other people and other things. Right? You can be in tune with your dog, your cat, your lover, your child, your parents, your boss. You can be in tune with the sounds of the waves at the beach or the wind going through the trees. You can be in tune with passing of a season as you see the leaves falling from a tree as we get into the center of winter right now. And then you can be in tune with the awakening of spring and as the seasons pass. In other words, being in tune implies that you're present, that you're fully present, that you're deeply aware of what's around you, and that you actually have empathy, openness, and care for what's around you. And if I know that my melody today is to speak with my amazing friend, Fred Moss, and we're going to share melodies and have an opportunity to harmonize together and reach out to your readers and your viewers, Fred, and be part of your amazing Welcome to Humanity community, then my goal is to do my best to harmonize and resonate and collaborate with that community. And then the other factor is the time that we do it. We agreed to meet at a certain time to have this podcast. We decided to put rhythm on our calendar and be intentional about timing and actually execute that and deliver that. Execution, deliver, meeting at a certain time is all time-based. It's all about living with intention and executing and achieving a goal. That's all around the work of time.
It's beautiful to consider. I really love what you said earlier, that this isn't an invention. It's a revealing. It's an unconcealing. It's a refocusing of what's already going on anyways, even if we don't naturally see it that way right now. That there's opportunity to see that all visual, all auditory, all interactions, everything that's going on, all oceans. We were at Gorgeous Space this weekend and we took some walks on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Like it was rainy and it was cold, and we went to areas in nature where perhaps the natural inhabitants weren't expecting a couple humans to be walking down the path. So we got access to animals who were like, what are you doing here? And flying quails was a few of them. And as they took off, there was like, wow, what was that sound? Was that their guttural, or was that their wing? Was that a concert? And how did they get to each other to let them know, here come a couple humanoids? And, in front of them, the next set of quails would fly. And what was more astonishing than anything was the sound, Freddie. I mean, it was nice to see these big birds. And I'm not a quail fan. I didn't even know they were quails till Alexander told me. And it was the sound that sticks with me now, a few days later. It's like, whoosh, the concert of the sound, and how they got it done, that they were then able to fly to their next perch in response to us intruding on their space. And I think you're speaking to that too, that is as much music as Earth, Wind, and Fire putting something down.
Oh, it is. Oh, I am. And thank you, Fred, for articulating that so beautifully. I mean, the quail, as you describe that, you describe it from the viewpoint of the observer. It's no longer, as you tell the story of you and your lovely wife, hand in hand in the rain, coming across these quail and observing them, you take yourself out of your world. It's not about me. It's not about my wife. It's about this moment where I get to kind of observe this ancient, actions of this bird and species of bird that's been around here way before I ever was around. And this is the way they've been doing it for tens of thousands of years. And I have a moment to observe it and catch it and marvel in it. And what you described is a moment of being truly in tune. And you're right, there is music in that whoosh of the quail, right? They also make this like, they make this kind of beautiful cuckling kind of sound, and they run on low ground, and they get under the brush, and they run really fast and before they take off. And then once they feel that you're too close, then they'll actually take off, but they'll try to avoid taking off. And they're the state bird of California. A lot of people don't know that. And they're just, they're incredible, right? And by the way, there's thousands of variations of those experiences around us at all times. And that awakens your sensitivity to life and your appreciation of life. And that in turn opens up the heart to be in a space of gratitude. And the whole thing about this is, if you become incredibly grateful and you're really grateful for the moments around you, the possibilities of inviting better things to happen to you in your life increase exponentially. So it's like there's a chain of events that occurs by being in tune, and they're all positive. And music is the ancient language that reminds us of a map or a system that is inherent in all of us. And you're right, I didn't invent life in tune at all. I'm just trying to bring awareness to this ancient gift that I believe is one of the greatest gifts to mankind. I have a poem called If Music Could Speak, and the first line is, music's the great invitation for mankind to transcend spoken word, to enhance how we think and put into sync so we hear what is mostly not heard.
Awesome.
And that's the opening line, but that's the idea, right? It's an invitation for all of us to hear things that transcend the spoken word, and to help us think and to get in sync with things that we don't normally think about. So and that's what that's about.
In this world of being in sync and being in tune and, catching the beat or setting aside whether I think it's good or bad, I guess here's where the question is going to land. It's going to land on, what can you describe for us? What do you really mean when you use the phrase in tune? So do I have to be a musician to be in tune? And I think the answer is clearly no. But what is it? Or maybe I'm always a musician and I don't give myself enough credit. That's another way. We could redefine the word musician to get, well, yes, if you're living, you're a musician. And again, I'm going to ask you to author this. When you say in tune, specifically in life in tune, what are you speaking of? In tune, in sync, in rhythm with, bouncing to? What does in tune mean?
The tagline to Life in Tune is strike success with the rhythm in you. And that describes a lot of it, because the reason the word strike is there is because it's like a bolt of lightning to be deeply aware. It's an awareness and it's an aha. It's about getting to aha moments. And when you get to an aha, like, whoa, I just got an insight, right? Your potential for succeeding has moved into the plus zone. You're green lighting more desirable things to happen to you, right? So that's the strike success success part, because success to me is many things. Many people think financial, but I'm thinking existence, wealth, and presence, and abundance. And those are a broader definition of success. And I think we're in a state of redefining the notion of success. To strike success with the rhythm in you. And rhythm means that you're in tune with the way you're dancing with the events of life. You're in tune with yourself, not only mentally and emotionally, which music tends to stimulate, but rhythmically. You have a discipline about how you get up, how you exercise, what kind of foods you eat. So all of those, the rhythm in you is about getting all those aspects of life, mind, body, and spirit into alignment, into the right rhythm. That kind of describes in tune in a very focused way. Striking success means being very present and having ahas. That means you're a student. I believe we're students we're teachers sometimes, but we're students all the time. And you get to ahas by being a constant student, by understanding that you're always in learning mode and doing your best to surrender the ego and any arrogance that goes with it.
Yeah, knowing isn't necessarily something that is a great place to land on. One of the things that I hear you saying is that, as a student, as a listener, as someone in tune with the world around us, taking in, receiving, the word strike has a different connotation. The word strike is an action. It's an intention. It's a, grabbing now. It's a swing. It's a declaration. There's something about like hit the timpani. Go ahead, blow that note. Go ahead, strum that string. Really?
Yeah. Well, the word strike is not a word that people use a lot. People usually talk about manifest success or get success, or it's always like that. I went with the word strike because you strike a chord, you strike a pose, you strike up the band, you strike it rich, you strike gold, you strike the keys of a piano, you strike the head of a drum, as you said. And strike is also a word, sometimes you go on strike. And by the way, going on strike is not necessarily negative. Going on strike means you're raising your voice because you believe there's been an injustice and you feel that you've got a voice and you've got to make a statement about it. That's not a bad thing. And I think it's really important to convey to all the listeners here that I believe that we have to live honest lives, and there's times for us to be warriors of peace, warriors of love, even though there's an oxymoron in that. I don't think there is. I think there's a time where you have to stand up for what you believe in. So I do believe there's a time for rhythmic action and taking rhythm and applying it to helping the world get out of its darkness. So strike is one of those words that kind of speaks to all sides of the coin, because life is a combination, is a dance between doing our best to stay positive, but also when we have dissonance, and we surely will be facing dissonance and challenge and stress, that we're able to take the space between the notes and not react adversely, but react thoughtfully so that we can make the next move
Move the needle forward.
Yeah.
By now, your brilliance is shining through, just to let you know. And by now, there's like, for those of you who don't know you, they don't know anything about your history. They don't know who you've played with. They don't know what you've done. They don't know what you've done in the world of, formal music, what you've done in the world of, globally making a difference with music. And I'd like to give you an opportunity now, Freddie, to just kind of let our listeners know, where have you been? What has your life unfolded for you in this world of music that has you be so beautifully articulate about what's here for us to deliver together?
Thank you. Well, I'll say this. First of all, I've been fortunate to be able to discover that I love music at a really early age. And I have been utterly fascinated with music, intoxicated with music from the time I was a kid. I couldn't believe that something so beautiful existed and that there was a way to work with it, like a person making a sculpture, that you could chisel away and you could play different chords and harmonies and different rhythms and bring so much joy and satisfaction. So that was the way it started. I found it to be absolutely compelling to play music at a very early age. And I decided that it was so important that I learned the craft of music. I started practicing the piano 10 hours a day. And I did that from the age of 11 all the way to 18. I went through college. I got my degree in music and studied with some of the top people in Los Angeles who were also a part of the media studio radio and television world that I was growing up in, which allowed me to play on a lot of shows and participate in some significant stuff that eventually would introduce me to Sergio Mendes when I was 23 years old and get my first global engagement. And within a week after he hired me, we were playing for the King of Thailand. So it was amazing. And I know that a lot of people listening to this may not know who Sergio Mendes is, but please look him up. He's still around, but he is pretty much considered the Brazilian ambassador of
After
music.
our conversation last week, I looked him up and I couldn't turn him off. We spent a whole night dancing to him, Alexandra and I. It was, I was like, wow, I forgot how amazing he is. So thank you for that. He's just an outstanding stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's a piano player, everybody. But he would hire me to play all the keyboards. And when I jumped in his band, I had 5 keyboards on a tower. I was surrounded by 5 giant keyboards, and I was playing strings and orchestra parts and synthesizer parts. My job was to be the orchestra that covered all the sounds that were on his records, while he played the piano with 3 girls on stage singing in Portuguese, and an incredible band, about a 12-piece band, just cranking out the most wicked samba you could imagine. So that was my first thrust into the global world with Sergio. And then a few years later, I was hired by Earth, Wind & Fire to serve as their musical director. And that remains one of the highlights of my life, working with the phenomenal band that still to this day, they're still doing engagements. And the band started in 1971. So here we are, they're still doing it almost 50 years later. Then shortly thereafter, I put out my first album on Universal. So I was developing a solo career.
What was that one called, Freddie?
My first album was called Midnight Passion, and you can find it out easily all over the net. And then the second album is called Soul to Soul, SOL to SOUL. The third album is called Freddie Ravel. It's on GRP Universal, and it has a song that went number 1 in the United States called Sunny Side Up. And then there's a fourth album called If Music Could Speak, where I recorded it with a live orchestra. It's a live album, and the orchestra was part of an amazing show called The Hour of Power.
That's the piece that you sent us last week, yes? That's where that came from?
I think so. It has some Christmas music on it. It also has music for all seasons on it as well. And it was recorded live, and a lot of people don't do anything live. And sometimes this album actually at moments had 100 people on one track because we had a choir singing, an orchestra, and a rhythm section. So it's really kind of a slice of an era that I hope comes back.
This was your arrangement, right? You put this whole thing together for the most part, yes?
Yes, these are my original songs and my arrangements, and a gentleman by the name of Mark Riley did all the orchestrations for the extended band that played around it, the strings and the horns and all those things. But yes, it's my music, and it was an incredible privilege. So 4 solo albums, and then going back to Earth, Wind & Fire. After that, I was hired by the great Jarreau, who is a really unique energy in music. He's the only guy who's won Grammys in R&B, jazz, and pop. No one else has ever done that, so he's amazing. And then a few years after that, I got a call to work with the great Carlos Santana and play with him. So, and then, I almost didn't mention Madonna, which happened in 1998 when we did the movie Evita, and also doing the Grammys with Prince. So it's been an incredible journey, Fred. And, there was a moment in the mix of all this that I started also working with a great thought leader that many of your listeners may know, the great Deepak Chopra. And working with Deepak was amazing. In fact, the space between the notes was the result of a song called Slip in the Gap that he and I, Verdine White, and a lady by the name of Anjani, the 4 of us wrote together. It was an amazing project. And that's on my second album, Soul to Soul. It's called Slip in the Gap. That was the moment when the light bulb went off and I said, wait a second, music is more than just all these styles and all these events and all these artists. Music is a whole language to talk about being present, being successful in business, being successful in life. And so that's when the seeds of Life in Tune got planted for me, was in the early 90s. And it just kept going. And I started doing speaking events, in 97, 98 with Deepak. And Deepak would invite me to do these events. And I would talk about, before I would play the piano and play with my band, I would talk about these ideas of melody, harmony, and rhythm. And when I would get done, people would come up to me and say, God, I never thought of music this way, Freddie. It's amazing. I feel like I can apply it to my daily existence now in ways I never thought of before. And that makes me really happy because I love music. And that was what led to me becoming,
striking yourself,
speaking.
Actually, right?
That's it. That was the lightning that struck me for sure.
I think you're alluding to this, but you might get that, once people are touched by this idea, there's like no turning back. Once you don't get to be pre-rhythm. Once you get the note, I guess you do. I guess you can be out of tune. I guess you can be off rhythm. I guess you can. Here and there, I have felt the dissonance that you spoke of. That's a sound-based word, dissonance. Am I right? Consonance and dissonance are sound-based words.
Oh, yeah. Well, sure. Everyone knows that horrible sound of fingernails against a chalkboard, or, if you hear it in your brain, it's like a screech. It hurts. That dissonance, right? Or the sound of a car crash, or the sound of glass breaking, smashing onto the floor. That's dissonance too, right? Or you take your fist and you crash it into a piano, right? That's also a cluster of notes, right? So those are all forms of dissonance. Or people arguing, that's dissonance too, right? But then if they're arguing with a sense of respect, it becomes a path to harmony. So there's this, as human beings, we walk the line. We have to dance with the darkness, and hopefully the dance leads us out of the darkness and gets us into a healthy dialogue. And I got to say, that's where I think Welcome to Humanity is really important, where we have to get on that path where dissonance. Are you ready for this? Dissonance becomes our friend. In other words, embrace the challenge. Embrace the dissonance, because guess what? Life is really challenging. I don't want to sound Pollyanna here. I don't want it to be like, hey, Fred, I've had several moments in my life where I've almost died, near-death experiences. I've gone through some difficult aspects in relationships. I've gone through difficult, on the positive side, I have 2 unbelievable children that bring me so much joy, that raise me. As I say, I raise them. They actually raise me. Now? My daughter is in LA right now, and my son is in Los Angeles. They're incredible, and I'll be seeing them in the next 2 days. I'm planning to take them to a surprise trip and do things with them, and it's incredible. I adore my children, and I have a beautiful lady in my life. Simone is an amazing woman in my life, and we're building our relationship into what I hope to turn into another high vibration of life in tune. But I share that on a personal level with everybody because we're all working to have those moments that we get out of tune, which, by the way, if you're a human being, should happen probably every 5 minutes.
Right.
Let's be real, everybody. We're all making the dance of going out of tune and back into tune, out of tune and in tune. And be okay with that. Be okay with the dance. It's all right. Don't beat yourself up too much, Oh, I'm not feeling this. Oh, that doesn't taste right to me. Oh, I got a pain in my back. Oh, I don't like what that person just said. Oh, I don't want that news to hit my ears. Oh, that's going to happen. You're going to get the you're going to get that a lot. So what has to happen is you got to bring it right back to going, wait a second, how do I dance with that ooh? How do I readjust my neck? How do I stretch? How do I stretch out my mind? How do I stretch out my body? How do I exercise? How do I drink enough water? Because most of us are chronically dehydrated, right? What do I do to stay centered, to stay present? What melody am I going to sing today? Who am I going to have the privilege, as I am right now, having the privilege to create harmony with Fred Moss? My God, what a privilege, right? So who do I make harmony with? And what rhythm will I dance to today? And asking yourself these questions will help you kind of keep your own GPS going on and help guide you to make better decisions as you put one foot in front of the other on the magnificent journey of life.
Beautiful. And really, you are reminding us all that, I guess you use the word Pollyanna, but which has its own musical brilliance and its construction as a word, by the way. And you start looking at, what's true here. Let's be honest. We are out of tune. If you're saying every 5 minutes, I think I'm actually out of tune a little more frequently than that. I hope that's not abnormal. I think it's more like every, 2.5 to 3 minutes for me. And it is a matter of retuning, retuning, like, okay, I didn't get that, or I'm confused, or I'm lost, or I'm aimless, at least momentarily and temporarily. And then grabbing hold of that discomfort and engaging that with all of the really wonderful human experience that includes at times massive dissonance and discomfort. And I think that's what you're pointing to here. By now, you picked up another boatload of potential followers or fans or people who are at least curious about what you're up to and, life in tune and the kind of work you might be engaging with, or the kind of fun that you're having in the world, or the things that you've already done, or maybe even contacting you at some level to work together or to play together or to dance or sing together. And how does one find Freddie Ravel if they need or want to get in touch with?
Yes, thank you so much, Fred. So I invite everyone to visit lifeintune.com. And the moment you're there, you'll find a way to communicate with us. And I'm there, and I have a team of 5 people that work with me. So we will make sure that we have you on a list and we stay in touch.
Beautiful. That's great. And is there anything else that you want to say?
I'm going to say something the repeat symbol is very important. You know why? Because every day is a privilege to sing your song, harmonize with people, dance in rhythm to others. And, you take good care of your health, and the sun rises the next day, and you have a chance again to claim the symphony of your existence.
I love that. Thank you. There we go.
There you
go.
Well
done. So listeners, it sure has been fun for me, and I trust great fun for you to allow me to introduce to you wonderful, beautiful guest, Freddie Ravel today. Thank you for hanging around this far, and thank you for being you, and thank you for taking on everything it means to be you, and really getting the beauty and the joy of what it means to be in rhythm, to be in tune, and the exploration and the challenge to get back into tune when you fall out of tune. And it's just been a great journey this episode, Freddie. Thank you for being with us. It's been a deep and honest pleasure. So welcome to humanity. Welcome to our show. Anything you want to say in closing, Freddie?
I just want to thank you, Fred. I mean, it was glorious to be with you and your viewers and listeners. I kind of feel compelled to say, don't be hard on yourself, everybody. Don't be hard on yourself. We're going through unprecedented times right now. There's a lot of dissonance, and we have to be tempered, and we have to be malleable. We have to be willing to dance with the change and recognize that the music that's within each and every one of you is important to sing, to harmonize, and to be in rhythm with things. And at the same time, be able to release. Keep your expectations high, but be able to pivot. There's going to be a lot of pivoting going on. There's going to be a lot of shifts going on. And those of us who have the ability to dance and pivot and stay open to contribution and find ways that our skills and talents contribute to where we land, because we're going through a lot of uncharted waters, those are the ones who are going to get through the journey with the highest level of success and life in tune.
Thank you. Thank you, Freddie. Wonderful parting words. Thank you, everyone, for listening. Thank you for being somebody who cares about life. And thank you for being curious. Thank you for taking on everything there is in your world. Everything. That's right. All of it. Thank you for getting the beauty and joy that's right in the middle of all of that. Freddie, we'll catch you on the flip side. It has indeed been a pleasure, and we'll talk soon. Take care. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Freddie Ravel is just the man. I mean, he's such a beautiful person, and you should check out, some of the videos he's created, and he has a number of albums that he referenced as well. I've listened to them, and I just love them. I mean, it's so much fun having a conversation with someone as gifted, as talented, and as natural as Freddie Ravel. I mean, he is so human and so vulnerable. It's a lot of peace in discussing with him how he sees the world and what's important to him. And for me, the impact is I'm left as a different person after completing my conversation with him than I was beforehand. Just absolutely beautiful. And maybe that's a shared experience for you, and you're thinking of a person or two who could use that experience, so you should invite them to listen to this episode. And go ahead and reach out to them now, invite them to listen. And if they love it, invite them to subscribe and invite them to leave a review, because after all, that's the way that Welcome to Humanity gains new audience. If the conversations we're having are contributing to your life, go ahead, pay it forward. Once you're subscribed, you'll get access to all the new episodes as they become available. And to catch up on past episodes, I invite you to go over to welcometohumanity.net/podcast, and all the past episodes are there for you to download and listen to and enjoy. So until next time, this is Dr. Fred, and this has been another wonderful, incredible edition of the Welcome to Humanity podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure. It's an honor. Thank you for listening. Have a beautiful day, and welcome to humanity.